I did see a video that I wanted to watch that I know none of you want to watch at all. You guys have zero interest, but I have a lot of interest. I haven't even played Dragonflight, but it's like, why is what went wrong with Dragonflight PvP? It's 16 minutes long, and I really wanted to see this because I don't even know the status of the game.
World of Warcraft has more.
So if you hate WoW, well, hey, we're about to talk the fuck out of it.
Players than it did in Legion.
I'm curious.
Dragonflight has offered more content than ever before.
And skill capped goes way back. In fact, I remember skill capped reached out to me when I was like 13 years old and wanted me to be one of their video producers to make Feral Druid guides. I was so excited because I was like, I'll technically be considered a pro gamer if they pay me like 20 bucks for a video. I was so fucking excited. I think there was Charizzy Cat, who was like their only Feral Druid at the time, and I was like so fucking pumped. I never made a video. I couldn't figure out how to edit.
Fixing some of the biggest
short,
issues from previous expansions. But if WoW is doing so well, why does PvP suddenly feel so dead? Of course, the player base is now fractured more than ever. But you could join a solo shuffle queue right now and watch.
I've never queued solo shuffle. I have no idea what it's like.
And even if you're an experienced player, Arena can feel overwhelming. We can't even imagine what it feels like to be a new player in 2024. Add-ons have become part of the metagame itself, and classes now have more damage, mobility, and micro CC than any other point in WoW's history.
I'm trying to up the volume for you guys here. I think I know the issue. Oh, there you go. All right, now.
How did this happen? And more importantly, what can we do to fix it?
There we go.
This video is going to focus on Solo Shuffle, which has become the most popular PvP mode by far, but not without a few consequences. From class balance to queue times, incentives, and more, Solo Shuffle might have changed PvP forever, and some players are scared for the future. But we think there are a few simple solutions that already...
Is Solo Shuffle really the most popular game mode, PvP-wise? Have you seen Sea-Doo's UI? No, I haven't. Not playing WoW is the most popular. Okay. It's just easy. I mean, you know, honestly, it makes sense. It is so easy to like, just rather than find a partner, hey, just click the button and right. I've never played solo queue. I've never played Dragonflight. It's the only WoW expansion I've actually never played. And I kind of want to play. I'm not going to because the new expansion's right around the corner, but I don't know. I don't know any of this stuff.
Exist in the game itself that could make PvP flourish in the war within. So join us as we take a deeper dive into class design in Dragonflight and some of the ways PvP could be improved for the future.
Okay.
Everywhere you look, you will see one basic complaint about PvP. Arena is too overwhelming, which makes add-ons practically required. Oh yeah, and queue times are long, but more on that later. Anyway, let's be honest, Arena does feel hard these days, and it's hard to pinpoint why. But add-ons have become one solution. This is what Sea-Doo's UI looked like during Warlords of Draenor. And this is what his UI looks like now. It seems like...
Fuck. This actually doesn't look crazy to me. But now that I stop and I try and get out of my head and be like, how does this look to someone that didn't play the game for like 50,000 hours or some crazy shit? Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Half of his screen is covered with weak auras, cooldown trackers, nameplates, and more. Without a doubt, add-on...
That's Sea-Doo's UI too. I know Sea-Doo is like... Sea-Doo was one of the like first WoW competitors where... So add-ons were banned in actual PvP tournaments. I think they reverted that change, but for a long time that's how it was. So when someone cast like an interrupt, you couldn't have an add-on to track when they would have it back. So what you'd have to do is every time an interrupt went out, you'd have to have a macro that would stop a stopwatch. So you'd have a stopwatch timer in the corner and like, oh, they use spell lock, and you'd have a macro for 23 seconds because that's the cooldown of spell lock. And then they used kick, and you'd do 10 seconds, and you'd have to listen for the kick animation, and you hit your kick stopwatch timer. I did that too, but not to the competitive level of Sea-Doo because he did it really early. Now they allow add-ons, so why the fuck would you do that, right?
Screen is covered with weak auras, cooldown trackers, nameplates, and more. Without a doubt, add-ons have become infinitely more complex in the past 3 expansions, turning a game that is supposed to feel alive.
Fuck, I keep pausing it. That's the other. What other add-ons do you need besides interrupt bar to make life easier? I guess cooldown tracking. This isn't Wrath or anything. This is like game of cooldowns. Weak auras. Weak auras is not an add-on. It's just like a hub of other add-ons, right? More specifically, what do you need? And I guess it's just cooldown tracking, and I guess DR timers, so knowing when like you can re-polymorph someone without just re-DRing it. That's
Green
it.
is covered with weak auras, cooldown trackers, nameplates, and more. Without a doubt, add-ons have become infinitely more complex in the past 3 expansions, turning a game that is supposed to feel alive and immersive into your grandma's Internet Explorer back in 2006.
Holy fuck. What's hot? Ask. What's new? Featured. Holy fuck. I'm going to go all over the place in this video, but Vicky and I were talking, and I had to explain to her what LimeWire was recently. She's like, what's LimeWire? I'm like, you don't know, Pain. You don't know virus. Life. It was bad. It was so bad.
7. Solo Shuffle is just one reason why UIs got to this point. Without communication, you need a million different alerts letting you know what's going on. But we think the issue is multiple layers deep. The problem isn't Solo Shuffle alone, but also class design, and more specifically, power creep. As WoW gets older and more complex, classes get updated and start to become way more complicated every single expansion. This isn't just unique to WoW, and happens in almost every single game.
Yeah.
PvP has seen power creep in multiple places, and mobility is the most obvious. Ever since the introduction of Demon Hunters and Legion, there's been an arms race in the way characters move. This same expansion is when Paladins would get Divine Steed, and some melee would even get extended range on their attacks. Fast forward to Dragonflight, and a spec like Outlaw Rogue has Shadow Step, Grappling Hook, Sprint with 100% move speed, 3 extra yards on every attack, and even an attack that charges them to their target. Best part, almost all of this can have its cooldown lowered.
Oh my god!
In fact, mobility is so ridiculous that a simple macro can make it look like rogues are cheating. Just watch this player after they Shadow Step Venruki.
What?
In case you missed it, here it is again.
He shadow stepped and then grappled back in.
Instantly hooks back, having nearly 100% uptime while landing CC. Next expansion, Death Knights will be getting their own version of Divine Steed, allowing them to mount in combat. Right now, melee is winning the race, but we've seen glimpses of what can happen when casters get their own power creep. But why should you care about character movement? As Core 8 Gaming pointed out, any buff
it's all about movement.
Is a buff to the entire toolkit. It means doing better damage since you have an easier time sticking on target, and this even applies to healers. You will do more healing if you have more movement. Being faster means it's easier to cross the map and even avoid CC. Obviously, moving faster is also a buff to survivability because it's harder to actually get hit. If you are a new player trying to pick up a caster, the melee mobility creep is going to be a nightmare. It will feel like you never have the chance to actually get away. Even if you manage to get a few seconds of breathing room, it probably won't last for long, and now you need to deal with the next power creep.
Are casters even casters anymore in this game? I feel like they're just glorified melee characters.
Micro CC is not Polymorph, Cyclone, Sap, or even Hammer of Justice. No, we're talking about something else. Micro CC is the smaller, shorter CC that is just there to add more disruption. It's not Sap, but Gouge. It's not the 6...
Like, I've played too much Classic recently. I haven't played Retail at all, but this is reminding me of, like, WoD and Legion. If I'm on a mage as a Feral Druid, that mage's health is going down. Sure, the priest can use cooldowns, the mage can use cooldowns, but like if he's sitting there like a target dummy, his health is eventually going to reach 0, and it's not going to take that long. They've got to be pressing buttons, they've got to be CCing me, or they've something. And I don't even need to use cooldowns for it, right? But in this, it's like everyone just has perma uptime, even on mages. Warlocks are like the one exception of casters where it's like, hey, I can tank a couple melee hits, but only a couple. Eventually, you know, my cloth is going to start showing and I'm going to be dying fast. This just doesn't seem like that's a thing. It doesn't matter.
Trap? No, that's the CC.
Like, what's plate armor? I don't even know.
Second silence from Spider Venom. It's the fact that even if a monk misses their kick, they can still ring a piece to stop a cast. The metagame in 2024 is dictated by smaller micro-disruptions in gameplay. Everyone's goal in Arena is to make sure the enemy team can't control their character.
That's always how it is.
To the point where even a spell like Intimidating Shout was used as a stun effect, with Absterge getting controlled for almost 3 seconds by a fear while getting trained, eventually leading to elimination.
How did the fear not break?
Before the talent tree revamp, many CC spells used to share talent slots, but now many of these choices are available all at once. In Dragonflight, Micro CC is what wins games. You're never 3-2-1ing your spells in a coordinated effort, but instead just denying your opponent from playing the game while you blast them with damage. This has even led to a completely backwards playstyle for some classes. Ironically, despite having one of the strongest crowd control spells in the game, mages don't really have any Micro CC, which means spending most games blinking backwards and being a spectator, hoping their Demon Hunter will win the game.
Oh my god.
Patch 10.1 included nerfs to the duration of all.
The best CC class in the game is no longer even a CC class because it's just about micro CCs.
Almost every CC in the game, which unintentionally shifted the balance in favor of Micro CC. What's the point in overextending for a 6-second polymorph while losing out on damage when your infinite mobility rogue could just gouge at almost 0 damage?
Oh no, he's
loss?
trying to pop.
We'll talk about damage in a second, but because burst DPS is so high, there isn't a need for clean setups. As long as you can just prevent someone from controlling their character, it doesn't matter how sloppy you play. Micro CC is also the reason why precog exists in the first place. With mobility creep and almost every class having an interrupt, there aren't many windows to actually cast. Watch me try and land a single Cyclone on a Demon Hunter who won't even use their kick. Between 2 stuns and incap,
stun number 1,
and Shadow Meld, it's not even possible to cast
stun number 2
without losing most of my HP. Because of this, most casters have the majority of their damage coming from instant cast spells. And it's no surprise that specs with the best instant cast damage are the ones who gravitate towards the S tier. The power creep of mobility and Micro CC might seem where this story ends, but we're not finished yet. Weak auras has become ubiquitous in PvP starting in Shadowlands, because during the early expansion, burst damage was at its peak. With a buff to the crit modifier, players were getting one-shot like never before, and even though crit damage would be nerfed in early Dragonflight,
Vanguards
there was
still
another
playing.
dramatic shift in class design that had been boiling over in the background, as now not only was burst damage high, but now every player was taking damage at once. This was a trend that had started in Legion. Class design was moving away from single...
You know what's crazy? I actually quit Feral Druid in Legion. I played Monk, and I realized, and I kind of just committed to Monk, and I was like, all right, you know what, here we are. But I quit because I thought it was a Feral Druid problem. I liked Feral Druid because it felt like I put bleeds on one person, and then I go control the healer. And my bleeds just do dot damage, and I'm like... I'm a DPS, but I'm like a support DPS. You know, my job is to put the bleeds up, does good damage, and now go fuck with the healer. But then Legion came around, and all I did was, okay, I got bleeds on this guy. I'm going to put bleeds on this guy as well. Okay, now I'm going to put bleeds on this guy. Might as well. Let's just bleed the whole team. Let's not CC anyone. And now I'm just tab bleeding. I'm actually PvEing, and I was like, this class sucks. And Monk is kind of the same thing. You just don't have to tab target. You just hit Fist of Fury and it hits everyone on its own. But yeah, I hate it. I fucking hate that like CC's not a thing. There's no thinking.
Target abilities,
it's actually PvE.
Damage that would automatically cleave. Classes like mages were abandoning CC altogether in order to just AoE down every player at once. Why waste time casting Polymorph on the healer
It's true.
when you can just press Arcane Barrage to wipe out the whole team? Combine this with Micro CC, and you have a metagame based around splash damage, especially with the introduction.
I haven't even seen Evoker. I don't even know how this class works.
Mechanic borrowed directly from a raid boss. In the past, Frost DK was defined by its AoE setups, getting a huge damage spike with Pillar of Frost, and then cleaving everyone down at once. But now, it feels like most classes can do the same thing. Just crank up the damage meters and toss in a few stuns, and suddenly you've learned how to PvP. So now in Dragonflight, we have a metagame defined by power creep with mobility, Micro CC, and AoE damage. Classes and comps that once felt unique have converged into a single win condition, which is to simply do as much damage as possible, abusing a million different modifiers to inflate the damage of a single spell.
I knew it was a problem when every pro at the end of like every game, you just look at recount, like you look at details and you see how much damage everyone did just to see how well you played. As soon as, if you're looking at that to see how well you played, it's like, okay, something's wrong here.
There's less of a need for precise setups and calculated play, and more often than not, the only thing that matters is how much damage you can do and how quickly you can respond to a weak aura. At the time of writing this video, one of the most dominant comps on the 3v3 ladder is
probably Melee Cleave,
Arms Warrior, and Fistweaver Monk. It dominates with
Fistweaver.
pure numbers, overwhelming healers with raw damage and Micro CC. And that's mostly how the average solo shuffle game is played, since many classes simply have enough damage to kill through healing, especially during dampening. These days, balance is less about mechanics and more about numbers. How much DPS can you do and how little will you take? So, how did we get to this point in class design? In WoW, there's been a growing tension between class balance and class identity. In the past, everyone was defined by unique mechanics. Rogues had their stuns, hunters had their pets,
Mortal Strike,
and Frosty K's still kinda sucked. Having a unique class identity is cool and all, but it doesn't take long to realize that
Frosty K's had Necrotic
really
Strike.
Nice to have, especially in PvP. Warriors used to be defined by Mortal Strike, and were one of the few classes to actually have this mechanic, but as it turns out, reducing healing in PvP is pretty damn good. So good that these days almost every single melee in the game has Mortal Strike. And even Warlocks have it too, but it gets even more ridiculous. Demon Hunter have a Mortal Strike. 2 stuns. One of them is AoE, by the way. What more? Oh yeah, an instant cast Polymorph or Cyclone, an AoE Fear, a magic dispel for some reason, and they basically have speed hacks. Demon Hunter is a pretty extreme example, but you get the point. Mechanics that were once unique are now passed around like a joint at a Snoop Dogg concert. This is known as homogenization, which causes classes to lose their identity over time in the sake of game balance. There's a private server called Project Ascension where any player can use any ability. In this game, there are no classes. Obviously, we're not at this point, but you can start to see the extreme end of homogenization. It might.
I do with what's it called? With Plunderstorm being, I'm pretty sure a success, right? I really hope Blizzard takes that to the next level. And I know they're doing their Mists of Pandaria thing, but I want them to basically copy Ascension WoW and do something like just stupid shit like this. I'm excited for it. You can't stream Ascension. It's a private server, but you know, I'm all for Blizzard just stealing it. Well, stealing it. They stole WoW first, but whatever.
Seemed cool, but it takes away the identity of playing a unique class. The cool part about playing a rogue is being a tactician, but these days more and more specs are becoming brawlers, even sub-rogues, who at one point were topping damage with Rupture, all while tab targeting to kill the entire team.
That's literally Feral Druid. You just tab bleed. It's so boring.
We don't want to go pointing fingers, but PvE and especially Mythic Plus were a big part of homogenization. Mythic Plus is by far the most popular game mode in Season 3, with almost 300,000 runs per day, compared to Solo Shuffle, which doesn't even scrape that amount per week. The Mythic Plus player base is almost 10 times the size of PvP, so it kind of makes sense what direction Blizzard might lean to when figuring out class design. To do big pulls in Mythic Plus, you need your group to quickly dodge mechanics, all while having enough kicks and CCs to stop multiple casts in a row. Mobility and lots of CC. This sounds familiar. Mythic Plus also has DPS checks every few minutes, with pressure points based around big pulls and boss timers, which means you need big burst damage in very specific moments, and on Trash, you're going to need to spam your AoE stops while pumping out as much AoE damage as possible. Okay, so lots of CC, high mobility, cleavy burst damage. Geez, this really reminds me of something else. Oh yeah, those bosses in Mythic Plus have these big one-shots. That means every class needs to have strong defensives. And if they die without using them, well, that's their healer's fault. I wonder where I've heard this all before. We don't think it's a massive conspiracy to say PvE might have had a massive effect on class identity and class balance.
Yeah.
Because it's no accident that the mobility and AoE damage shift we saw in Legion was a direct result of a new game mode that just happened to be released at that time, where dungeons need to be cleared as fast as possible by pulling multiple mobs at once. And now these power creeps have fully spilled over into PvP, becoming even more amplified thanks to Solo Shuffle, a game mode where raw damage reigns supreme. The add-on problem that many people talk about wouldn't be such an issue if the game weren't so power crap. You wouldn't need 10 different alerts letting you know the enemy team popped their Giga AoE offensive. Now, here's where things get a bit touchy. There's a lot of people who enjoy Solo Shuffle for a few good reasons. Let's face it, the WoW community is getting older and some of us have busy lives. Maybe our friends have moved on from WoW and we don't want to sit in LFG. For many players, Solo Shuffle is really hard to find a third. Participate in ranked PvP. It's clear that many players want to just press play and get immediately into the action. Other players are more pessimistic, arguing that Solo Shuffle is literally killing PvP.
Oh, it's MVQ.
One thing they say is that Solo Shuffle gameplay doesn't feel like real arena. To them, Solo Shuffle is the fast food of PvP. It's addicting and gives you what you instantly want, but maybe it's not the healthiest. And right now, it's the only thing people want to eat. There's a growing sentiment that arena has started to feel more like PvE. In Solo Shuffle, where you can't...
What did that say? Who was that? Oh, it's Naj. Kind of close to the end of my rope with PvP. Arena is just way too PvE, and Plunder isn't good for my viewership. My time and effort just seems wasted. I don't think I can cope. Okay. Yeah, WoW is a terrible game to invest time in career-wise. It's the fucking worst. It's so bad. Play Valorant.
To feel more like PvE. In Solo Shuffle, where you can't really coordinate crowd control or even damage itself, it makes sense that simply cleaving the enemy team down and stopping casts like Mythic Plus would become the emerging playstyle. But this has even crept into 3v3 itself, where even a comp like RMP can just win with raw numbers. But with the convenience of Solo Shuffle, participation in other brackets has gone down dramatically. RBGs are especially dire, with daily games sometimes being less than 200. And with the potential introduction of BG Blitz as a rated mode, RBG participation could become entirely extinct in the future. Currently, arena rewards and other brackets are becoming harder and harder to get. Since participation is a big factor in MMR, less people playing means less rating inflation, and less inflation means a confusing sense of progression from season to season. Venruki recently tweeted that his Shaman is 600 rating lower than it was in Season 1, despite the fact that he feels better playing the spec.
Oh yeah, I saw this tweet.
Lower than it was.
So he started playing Resto Shaman, which, you know, I don't know how new he is, but let's just say he's really new to the game, and he got 2,700. And then multiple seasons later, he's obviously gotten much better. He's 2,100. I mean, I've had discussions with people, like WoW players, and I'm like, hey, cool, you play WoW? Oh, you PvP? Wait, what rating did you get? He's like, yeah, dude, I'm like 2,600. I'm like, okay, that doesn't mean anything. What season? What expansion? Because it's so fucking different.
In Season 1, despite the fact that he feels better playing the spec. This confusing sense of progression kills motivation for many players and keeps them more attached to a single bracket. So how can we get people to play other brackets more without completely making Solo Shuffle obsolete? Surely there has got to be a system that encourages people to participate in PvP while also attracting new players. If there's one thing players love more than standing around Elwyn, it's looking cool while doing it. I mean, that's why we play the game, right? We know for a fact that cosmetics are highly coveted rewards for many players. And apparently, some people are willing to play Fortnite WoW Edition just to get a pirate transmog. A trading post type system specific to PvP seems like an obvious way to motivate participation in other brackets.
That ain't gonna save it though.
That sent you to win 2v2, 3v3, or RBGs, resetting every month with new rewards. These rewards could be anything, like black market auction house containers. They could even be old elite sets, but probably reskinned. Healers could even get their own unique rewards, like bonus black market containers, or a discount code for therapy, and a 2-week vacation to get away from every demon hunter. Anything that gets more healers participating means faster queue times for everyone else. The goal is to make sure players can enjoy everything WoW has to offer by offering incentives to play multiple brackets. As long as new players have a motivating reason to engage in PvP, and as long as we can make sure everyone is trying every bracket, PvP will naturally be in a better place. With more players, there could be a greater incentive to rethink class design. We have to admit that Mythic Plus isn't going anywhere, and designers will probably prioritize it over PvP for the time being.
What a tough challenge. How do you fix this?
Here too. Even though the talent trees were meant to be evergreen systems,
they're like trying to offer fixes, but none of them will actually work.
Have completely different talent trees.
I don't think you do.
Some classes need dramatic reworks in PvP. Frost Mage is just one example. It's suffering from button bloat, with not one, not two, but 3 different and easy to counter burst spells. To fix this, the entire spec would need to be rebuilt from the ground up in PvP. But instead of class tuning these days, it's more about adjusting PvP modifiers up and down. The entire philosophy behind the original PvP talent system was to make sure classes could get major rework without affecting PvE balance and vice versa. The issues we discussed today are just one of many affecting PvP.
I have a million things to say. I'm just gonna wait.
Like map bloat, and the fact that there are potentially way too many arena maps these days, with many weird balancing issues. When players were discussing a solo game mode 3 years ago, the intention was to make sure there was a way to instantly...
Oh, Savix is there, of course.
But since Solo Shuffle lasts 6 rounds, there is a slow churn of players caused by congestion, which is why queue times can last so long for DPS, since you're
4 hours in queue.
6 rounds to end.
Wow.
Is its own issue, and many players think that rotations are becoming too complicated. We know that PvP combat can feel engaging even with 7 abilities, but you don't even have to take things that far. Between Arena 1, 2, 3 macros, talent swaps, and more, it's common to have over 40 keybinds in PvP, which is quite daunting as a new player. Even though players fought back pruning during Warlords of Draenor, a bunch of new hero talents on the way could mean WoW is getting even more complicated, and could benefit from a return to more simplicity. Arena is already complicated enough, and if we want to attract new players to PvP, it shouldn't feel like you need an Adderall prescription and an encyclopedia just to play. It's always been our goal at SkillCap to make WoW PvP easier to understand for any player. And over the years, we've been lucky enough to see 500,000 players learn something valuable in WoW Arena and reach their rating goals. But we want to know what you think. Is WoW too overwhelming these days? If so, what changes do you want to see going into the next expansion? For now, we want to thank y'all for watching. See you soon.
I actually been thinking about this ever since they canceled BlizzCon. I was like, man, because it just made me take a step back, and Blizzard's always been kind of like, man, Blizzard sucks nowadays. Blizzard's bad. But like, you look at it now, it's like, I get stressed and I don't even care what happens. Well, I do, but like, I don't work there. Like, holy fuck. Diablo 4, Overwatch. I mean, like, I don't have to say anything. Heroes of the Storm, Hearthstone. I don't even know what's going on in Hearthstone anymore. World of Warcraft. What do they even what else do they have? Oh god, StarCraft. Fucking gone. That's not even Blizzard's fault though. I think the genre just kind of got timed out, which is kind of what's happening to World of Warcraft, honestly. D4 bad, yeah. I don't know how you fix WoW. I really don't know what you do. Like, everything, like, my gut tells me you need to completely separate PvP and PvE, because PvE is only going to ruin PvP and make it awful. If you try and make PvE fun, you will fuck over PvP. But you separate them too much, and now it's like two separate games, and it's kind of fun that they're both the same game. If you tune the spells to where they function differently in PvP, again, now it's like it's kind of different games. You know, that's not what you want. What's the win here? To me, the only not guaranteed, but like really like, hey, that would work, assuming you do it right, is to literally start over. Like, fucking start over. Just throw it away. WoW 2. But it's like, how do you even go about doing that? What classes do you have in the game? What's the lore part? I don't even care about the lore, but I know it matters. What do you do? How do you approach that? I don't know. They're addicted to FOMO. They can't start over. Who, Blizzard? FOMO? Feeling of missing out. What does that solve, though? You still have the exact same problem when you design classes. Well, the problem with World of Warcraft is there's been so many, and it's talked about in the video, so many expansions where they had to, you know, expand upon the class. And the next expansion, you know, you got to keep your mages happy. What are mages going to be excited about in this expansion? We got to give them something crazy. But that's every single class. And it's like, expansion, expansion, expansion. And then you can't take it away. Taking it away just feels too bad. And then 18 expansions later, here we are. So you start fresh. I mean, like, do you just not give them Frostbolt, though? What do you do with a mage? That's different. What do you even do? Maybe you turn everything into skill shots, but then it's like, now it's I don't think people would be into that. Fuck. Wands only. Two old framing shots. I mean, I'd be all for it. Don't get me wrong, but I just know it's like, you got to kind of care about your base, right? And I feel like your base WoW players, they're tab target Andes. They're not going to convert over, or they already would have. Or maybe they say, fuck it. Hey, it's WoW 2. You don't like it? Okay. Fuck it. Let's just fracture the player base more. Let's have WoW 1, WoW 2, SOD, Classic. Fuck, what else is there? Plunderstorm and mop bullshit. Well, that's what I meant by classic, right? Oh yeah, hardcore WoW. Holy shit. I don't know. I just feel like it's all fucked. It's all fucked. What happened to Self-Found? SOD. SOD killed hardcore and everything else, and that's fine. But that's what happened to Self-Found. No one cares. And if no one cares, or if people aren't getting views while playing it, they're not gonna play it. And then no one streams it, which doesn't promote it, which makes less people play it. And it just dead, more dead, and then more dead, and then more dead. SOD Phase 3 blows. A lot went back to hardcore. Yeah, I heard there's nothing to do in SOD, but I'll be honest, there hasn't been anything to do in any of the SODs. I've been paying attention. I read the Reddits and I watch the streamers. I'm still a WoW player. I don't play much, but I pay attention. All there is to do in SOD is alt leveling. And then Sunken Temple. Like, that's it. Raid log. Like, the only way I play SOD right now, maybe I'll play at 60. SOD 60 might be fun because it's like, hey, actual raids and, you know, endgame content, maybe. But it's probably still going to turn into raid logging, right? Like, they need to add arena. There needs to be an actual never-ending system that you can actually care about, that matters in the game. Like, even if, like, you can speedrun Molten Core, but it doesn't actually matter. No one cares. But maybe they added a system where it does matter. Basically Mythic Plus, Molten Core. Maybe. You need stuff like that. Otherwise, yeah, you are raid logging. You don't care. Okay, Mop Remix has an infinite gearing system. I haven't read into it. I don't know. But for me, I would love it if when they release level 60, and this is actually going to piss people off, I actually want them to reset the entire server. Hard reset, everyone starts from 1. Unironically. And I said that, people got so mad at me, I still feel the same fucking way. Start over completely. That would be the best. I don't know. And that's not just because I'm behind, and I think I'm level 35. I think I'm like 35 on my druid. I haven't played. I just know people like resets, and it's like, it is, I don't know, I feel like that would make server first Molten Core clear way cooler than like, hey, I'm level 50 and I got to 60 in 20 hours, and my gear from level 50 was so good that we cleared the raid easily. Like, that's how I see that. But if you start fresh, I don't know, it just kind of elongates it. Was not the whole purpose to give people time to level? What do you mean? I like the idea of awakened/faded mechanic. I wish they do it with old X packs. I don't know what that is. Oh, you mean like the phases, why they're doing like 20 and then 30 and 40, well, whatever they did, however they did it. Yeah, I guess the casuals want to level, but at the same time, maybe they do just release 60, but then they like after 60, hey, fresh server. But the problem is that kind of kills a lot. At that point, cool, we've seen everything. Fresh server. But I'm telling you, like, if they did a fresh server on 60's release, and there's a lot of hype behind seeing Molten Core, but you have to level 1 to 60, even as a casual, just watching, that's fun as fuck. Like, oh, fuck, like they released the new Molten Core that they've adjusted, but we got a level to 60. I wonder who's going to be the first guild to clear it. Like, that is awesome. Fresh server after people spent all this time playing their characters? Yeah, fuck them. Unironically. Like, that's cool and all. I mean, have private servers? Have you not seen how many fresh servers have come out? What do you think, this is like new? That your character doesn't matter? and you are going to end up starting over or quitting at some point. 10 people play private servers. Well, now I'm talking about back then. Most people don't have time to deal with constant restarts, so their progression value is gone. I mean, that's fine, but it's one of those things. Sure, they may not partake in like trying to get server first molten core and like leveling like an autistic freak, but having those people being able to do that stuff matters. Even for the people that don't actually do it, it makes the world feel better. My opinion is, I think, and you know what? I'm right.